Hey, St. Anne's, Father Mitchell here, checking in with a few comments on in vitro fertilization. Since none of you chose it as the topic for this weekend's homily, I'm happy to share a few thoughts through YouTube on what is really a very challenging moral issue. So the moral teaching of the church is that it's not licit to use in vitro fertilization. So just to be super clear on that, that is the moral teaching of the church. And as your installed pastor now, I promised to give you the true faith and the church's true teaching on morals. And if I told you anything other than the truth of what the church teaches, you shouldn't trust me to be a guide in morality. The church has to take moral stances because Jesus entrusted her with the authority to bind and to loose. And to be Catholic is to have a meaningful unity in faith and morals. So we don't just talk the talk, we also walk the walk. And Jesus was a very strong moral teacher, made a lot of people angry, and always called us to the highest standard, to choose good at the highest level, to be saints, to be holy, to be perfect as his Father is perfect, and to be capable of loving one another as he has first loved us. So Jesus always came to fulfill the law, not just to tell everybody to be nice and to affirm every choice that we make. And so his teaching is hard. It's not for the faint of heart, but it is life-giving teaching, and the church has a right and responsibility to teach in his name. Even the church that's been filled with scandal and hypocrites still has the responsibility to guide people in faith and morals to the truth. So the church teaches that in vitro fertilization, even with a beautiful intent to try to bring new life into the world, even within marriage, is not a licit moral act. Nothing but compassion for those people who are experiencing the heartbreak of not being able to bring a child into the world through marriage. That's a natural fruit of marriage. It's a natural desire. It's put in our hearts by God himself. So when that's not realized, it really is a heartbreaking situation. And I think people in compassion can say, how can that be wrong to want to bring life into the world? I personally would not choose it if I was in that situation. But if I was talking to a spouse that wanted to use in vitro fertilization, I know how difficult that would be to explain to her why we could not do that. And so I've had these conversations with lots of different people. I've had people that choose not to use in vitro fertilization, and I know a guy that lost his marriage whose spouse left him because of that. I know people that have tried and not been successful. I know people who have tried and not had good results and regretted their decision. I also know people that have tried it and are just absolutely joyful with the results. And these are all practicing and good Catholics that I have visited with on this issue. I even had somebody once tell me, says, Father, I understand why the church teaches what it does, but in my conscience, I just can't agree to it. And I'm happy. I'm not saying I'm right and the church is wrong, but I'm happy to go before God and tell him that I did what I thought was right. And we have two beautiful children because we decided to go this route. So why would the church say it's not a licit moral act and advise against it? Well, two main things. The first one is that we are creating or manufacturing a situation in a laboratory where we choose who lives and dies. So in order for the technology to work, there have to be multiple embryos conceived. The health of those embryos has to be evaluated, and the healthiest and the strongest are chosen against the weak. Now, this happens naturally, of course, in the human process. Not every child that is conceived results in a baby. So there's natural miscarriages, and God has given us a superabundance of fertility. And so, again, it's really hard to see why it could be wrong when the same things where children die, that it happens naturally. And we even have a situation where we're called to give our lives for each other. So it's really hard to see how this is wrong. But the churches say we can't artificially create that situation where we are in the position of choosing who lives and dies and choosing the strong over the weak. It's not a morally okay situation to do that. The second issue is that a child has a right to be conceived within the natural embrace of a man and woman who are together in marriage and are loving each other and consummating their marriage. A child has a right to be born in that situation. I know it's heartbreaking when a child doesn't come from that situation, but a child has a right, and we always put the rights of children above our own rights. It's where children are safest and best cared for is within the natural embrace of a man and woman who are pledged to each other in marriage. So our in vitro fertilization opens up a situation where really anybody can say that they have a right to a child. I don't have a right to a child, but through this technology, I could manufacture a child. And a certain, children are a gift; they're not a possession. But I could essentially, create a child for myself, and I don't have a right to that. So in vitro fertilization neglects the rights of children, and again, I know that can be really hard. But if a child is born into a good situation and the parents want to give them life, how can that be a bad thing? But it is true that the rights of children are not respected in the process of in vitro fertilization. So what do? It's a tough issue. As long as everybody's trying to do the right thing and is trying to give life rather than take it, and is forming our conscience to try to choose the highest good and love and life, and not being self-righteous, not saying I'm right, the church is wrong. God can be with us and accompany us through all these hard moral decisions. A healthy Catholic community can live in the tension, and none of us is better than anybody else. We have no reason to judge each other, but we want to encourage each other to make the best moral choices that we can. And so we can always be reconciled. The only sins that can't be forgiven are sins against the Holy Spirit, which is when we lose heart or we become self-righteous. And so as long as we're all trying to do the right thing, I've baptized lots of in vitro babies. They're an important part of our community, and God does bring good out of many different situations. So that's our faith, and we have to kind of stick together, not compromising on the moral teaching of the church, but also living it as best we can in real life. That's a really important thing for us to do, and hopefully something we can do really well together here at St. Anne's. So God love you all. Thanks for receiving this and listening to this, and let's be with and for each other no matter what. God bless you. Have a good day.